That is one big pile of
Malacath is famous for his link with the Orcs, a Daedric Prince with a strong, dedicated and reasonably accepted following. His people don't make up cults here and there of those living in the shadows, like Honourable's Scythers or Volendrung's vampire covens. No, his people are an entire race. Despite living with names like the Daedric Prince of Lies, Deception and Hypocrisy, God of Curses, Lord of Ash and Bone, of Monsters of Vengeance, the Oathbreaker, the Furious One, and He Who Speaks Sideways. He who speaks sideways? What, is he having a stroke? What does that even mean? Anyway, you can see with all these names that Malacath isn't the most well respected among the people of Tamriel as a whole, and this probably shows you why the tribal orcs who worship the Lord of Ash and Bone so devoutly are outcasts in practically every province. But that doesn't mean every province looks at Malacath in the same way, and some hold on to an old idea of the Daedric Prince, back when he was someone different. Perhaps someone more marketable to the masses, shall we say. So let's look at how the people of Tamriel see Malacath, and what he actually is, or rather was.
You have helped rid the orcs of your Mars in a way that avoids the destruction of their tribe. They will become stronger for it.
Now this is episode 3 of my Daedric Prince series, with Honourable and Hercene preceding Malacath here, and if you've seen the others, you'll know that we begin with what the specific prince in question actually is. To do that, we need to look at what Daedric princes are in general, and then explain why Malacath may be different from the others. In relatively simple terms, Daedra are immortal beings known as the Et Arda, or the original spirits, who weren't part of the creation of the world, like the Aedra, who gave their power to the project earnestly, and the Magna Gi, who started as part of the project but then fled when they began losing their powers. In doing so, they burst through the sky, making the stars and the sun, but the Daedra had nothing to do with this, with their princes being the godly rulers of their own realms. Basically, Daedric princes didn't want to get involved with a creative project, and while the people of Nirn tend to be more Aedra leaning in their worship, since these are the guys who made the world they inhabit, this doesn't mean all Daedra are evil. You can call them lazy though. They didn't even make Nirn, and yet they spend a lot of time trying to influence it. Now sure, Mehrunes Dagon and Volendrung exist and are genuinely the worst, but then you get nicer princes like Azura. Well, nice relatively speaking. Now you'll notice that I haven't mentioned Malacath in all this, and this is because he doesn't fit the usual backstory of a Daedric prince. He's a little more special, at least according to the most common tales of his origin, and while his origin is something hotly debated, it's also probably the funniest of any fantasy god I could name off the top of my head. To explore this comical tale, that even the strangest minds couldn't dream up, we're going to need even more context about another god, Trinimac, but before we do that, let me help you do some dreaming of your own with today's sponsor, Manta Sleep. Sleeping is important, obviously, and if you want to get that well-rested perk in real life, Manta Sleep is here to help. Check out these fancy sleep masks, and this one here has these fancy eye cups to take pressure off your eyes. You can reposition them to fit your eyes and around your schnoz, and this feature makes them both more comfortable and a lot better at blocking out light. It's great for those of you who like sleep masks, and because it's fully blacked out, it's also great for when you're travelling on trains, planes, in the passenger seat of a car, or even on a rocky carriage to Helgen.
Hey, you're finally awake.
Not now, Ralof. In the summer season, when pollen has decided to be as violent as the orcs, I like using these cool cups for my inflamed eyes and sinuses, and pretend the club penguin guys me. Yeah, I just have this, but if you want these masks to improve your sleep and get that well-rested perk IRL, check out Manta Sleep in the description below and use code NOX for 10% off. Anyway, thanks to Manta Sleep for sponsoring the video, and let's get back by having a look at Trinimac. Roll the title card.
All were performed by Honourable, his orcish friend. It is time this legend was put to rest.
Trinimac is an old god, having a home in the ancient elven pantheons. If you look at any modern elven race, they probably won't have Trinimac as an active member of their pantheon, but the Aldmer loved him, so much so that he started getting more popular than Auriel, the sun god, and the big guy for the elves, and also the lamer version of Akatosh. For context though, the Aldmer are very much an old and pretty extinct race of elves, existing in the Dawn era and potentially sometime into the Merithic era. But Trinimac did earn his reputation with them. He was known as the warrior, the champion, the paragon, and was Auriel's greatest knight, representing an idealised champion that knightly elves could aspire to. He was also the guy who aided Auriel and the Aldmer in their war against Lorkhan and humanity, which eventually culminated in Trinimac ripping out Lorkhan's heart. And then that heart got shot into the sea by Auriel's bow, made a giant mountain, a giant mech got made, and then Morrowind happened. It's a long story. There's a Lorkhan video right there for you. Now, even though Trinimac was the Chad of a warrior god representing an ideal to strive for, his worship still faded and didn't evolve in the way that his boss Auriel's did, at least not in a more linear way. You see, while Trinimac was a champion and immensely powerful, being one of the most powerful among the Daedra, that didn't mean that he was top dog in general. As an Daedra, he had given a portion of his power to help make the world, so when it came time for a Daedric Prince to make their move and change the nature of the elves, they went for the champion first. Boethia began her plan by appearing in visions to a future saint named Veloth. Now, if this name sounds familiar to you, it's probably because of the Velothi Mountains being named after him, the range between Skyrim and Morrowind. Veloth was instructed to make a new religious sect, and those in the sect would eventually become the Kaimer, the predecessors to the Dunmer, but this was in opposition to the followers of Trinimac, who wanted to exile the followers of this new sect. So Boethia decided the only solution was a Michelin-starred dinner. In one version of this tale, Boethia took the form of a beautiful woman and appeared before Trinimac, asking for a snog, a big old smooch. Trinimac went in for the kiss, but Boethia took the opportunity to eat him whole. Now, this isn't where the story gets weird yet. You see, after eating Trinimac, Boethia is able to take his form, arriving before the followers of the Daedra Knight and Veloth's crew. While in his form, Boethia basically made Trinimac look as bad as possible. She started burping, farting, and speaking like a moron, attracting a bit of a crowd. As more continued to gather, Boethia revealed what she had told Veloth, and spoke about Trinimac's teachings as lies, essentially using his own form to chat shite about him. I mean, they do call Boethia the Prince of Plots, so this checks, I suppose. When Trinimac's followers were properly shamed, Boethia then presented the fecal cherry on top by, squeezing out the remains of Trinimac as a massive pile of dung. Yeah, she literally shat him out, and by some accounts the followers of both Boethia and Trinimac then rubbed the dung on themselves, changing their skin. Grim. Now, I suppose this could serve as a hilarious origin for the Kaimer and Orsimer, the Orcs, making them both poop elves, although this does feel uncomfortably racist. Another version of this story states that when Boethia ate Trinimac, he was tortured in the Daedra Prince's bowels, twisting and transforming him, and he was finally, passed out. Yeah, we'll go with that phrasing, and was thus relegated to the Ash Pit, his realm in oblivion, and the stink of his defeat made him vengeful, and thus he became Malacath, while his people became the Orcs, or the Stink Elves. Now, as funny as this is, and it's pretty funny, the Poop Elves obviously don't think their main man got dispatched this embarrassingly, although they can't agree on an origin for him, something that's a bit of a theme. So I'll just go over some different ones here. One story suggests that when Boethia was doing a whole Veloth cult thing, Trinimac challenged her, not being too happy about the whole situation. Apparently Trinimac had Boethia beat in their battle, but got jumped when Mathala, the spider one, stabbed him in the back. Now injured and helpless, Boethia used a ritual to mess Trinimac up, casting him into the ash pits and turning him into Malacath. His followers then became the Orcs. Another suggests that Trinimac fooled Boethia, using a portion of her power to give his followers a power-up, thus making the Orcs the superior elves. Don't know about this one, Chief. While the final version of the story puts Malacath and Boethia as a team, rather than adversaries. Malacath is suggested as the agent of Boethia, and somehow imprisoned Trinimac, treating the pair as separate entities, rather than the same being who gets transformed. Because Orcs can't agree on his origins, they end up having two names for the Trinimac-Malacath duo. Malacath represents the Daedric half, while Mauloc is the Aedric half. But now that we're on the topic of looking at different viewpoints, we might as well look at how the different peoples of Tamriel see Malacath, and how he fits into their pantheons.
You don't deserve to call yourself an orc. You're weak, you're small, and you're an embarrassment.
We're not going to go into all the races in massive detail here, since some don't really have much to say about Malacath, even other elves, but we've mentioned the Dunmer, or I guess Chimer, here, so let's look at them first. Boethia is part of the three good Daedra, who are the main gods in Dunmer culture, so it shouldn't be much of a surprise that they are pretty anti-Malacath. In fact, they put Malacath in the House of Troubles, basically the worst three gods from a Dunmer point of view. There are 4 Daedric princes in this house, with each representing a corner because houses only have 4 corners apparently, even though Dunmer homes are round. Anyway, Malacath is the first corner, standing with Maren's Dagon, Molag Bal, and Sheer Gorath. Now that's not great company, is it? Probably tells you all you need to know about the Dunmer and Malacath, I think. The Outmer stopped caring about Trinimac, going away from the worship of their ancestors, which would have included the Great Knight. And because Malacath is now a Daedric Prince, and the current Outmer, as of Skyrim anyway, are very against Daedra worship, it should be no surprise you probably won't find a lot of love for him there. The Bosmer only care about Ephrae, tree hugging, and cannibalism, so yeah. Moving on to goblins, I guess. They have pointed ears, basically the same thing, right? Anyway, apparently goblin ken races, so goblins and ogres, worship Malacath pretty heavily, calling him Muluk, or the Blue God, while the Dunmer call goblins the product of Malacath's putrid feces. Why is everything poop related with this guy? Anyway, ogres are specifically viewed as Malacath's little brothers, so he obviously hates ogre related racism, and the god Maloc led a bunch of goblins in an invasion of Hammerfell, with Red Guards believing this was an avatar or guise of Malacath. On the topic of Red Guards, they don't have a lot to say about Malacath other than that Maloc is an enemy because he invaded them. Yeah, a pretty A plus B equals C conclusion there, don't really need to go into that much more. Let us then move on to more human perspectives after the Red Guards. The Imperials don't care all that much. He's one of the 16 acceptable blasphemes under Tiber Septim's dynasty, but that's all I found when it comes to Imperial worship of him. Bretons don't really mention him in their pantheons either, from what I can tell anyway, although they probably don't like him all that much given numerous altercations with the local orcs. But the Nords are a bit more specific. Like the orcs, there are two different divine beings you can attribute to Malacath. There's Malok, the same name as the orcish one, testing the Nords through warfare. It's pretty self-explanatory here, since Nords historically fought the Orcs throughout their history, although by the time of Skyrim it seems the two have chilled out and have just accepted living near each other. Well, except for that one warband in the Namira questline. The other, more interesting god is Orc, known as the Old Knocker in the ancient Nordic pantheon, who also has a bit of arcane in there, hence the name similarities. He is known as the god of mortality, and as time went on he became less Malacath and more Arcane, which apparently explains the halls of the dead seen throughout Skyrim cities by the time of the game. The funniest thing Orc ever did was summon an astral version of Alduin to eat the time of the Nords, and turn them into children because apparently Alduin can do that. Huh. Anyway, this ended hilariously with the Nord king at the time, Ysmir Wolfhalf, who was also a dragonborn, summoning the ghost of Shor to fight Alduin, then using the voice to turn the Nords back into adults. Shor then grabbed this time-sealing curse and threw it on the orcs, showing that if there's a Mer in the name somewhere, or just pointed ears, it's on site with Shor and the Nords. As the Malacath side of Orc has dissolved and it's just become Arcane now, Nords used to keep statues of the testing gods. While they're the enemy of the Nords, that didn't mean the people of Skyrim and Atmora had no desire to appease them. Sure, they're the enemy, but that doesn't mean you should go around pissing Orc off. Still, with orcs seemingly left alone in Skyrim by the 4th era, it doesn't seem like Malacath's disdain has been sustained for that long.
Line right here?
Yeah,
that means that my property starts right here. It
not
goes all the way. That's my fourth
That is
of
not
hell.
what that means. Your property starts at the post, dude. At the
You're
post.
f***ing stupid. Go get a
Oh,
survey.
shit.
Now, the Argonians couldn't care less, which is becoming a theme with these guys in the Daedric Prince series. They only really care about these hiss trees. In an environment like Black Marsh as well, it's very difficult for anyone that isn't an Argonian to live there, which obviously includes orcs, so it's quite difficult for Malacath to have any influence in the region. The Khajiit don't really seem to care much either. They have this demon dude, Orca, who shares similarities with Malacath, so I guess this is the cat version of the poop god, with him fighting Lorkhaj, that's Lorkhan/Shor, Kenarthi, aka Kinarath, and Boethia, and getting banished at the battle's conclusion, with the Nords mentioning Shor's battles with Orc and a whole host of stories of Boethia's plot against Trinimac/Malacath. Orca is probably the Catman version of Malacath. While not as popular as people like Hersin, check out his video here, Malacath does get at least a little love from the Reachmen, or Forsworn as they're known by the time of Skyrim. They know him as the Lord of Ash and Bone specifically, and see him as someone giving them tests, with these tests including making the orcs, trolls and goblins. Yeah, imagine thinking an entire race of people got made just to test you. And they call Nords racist. Should I do an Elder Scrolls racism tier list? Everyone would just be S tier, I feel. Let's get back on topic. Now, because Malacath isn't the most benevolent type of god that gives out gifts, he's not all that popular among the Reach folk. No one likes tests after all, even if Malacaths are intended to make you stronger. There is a link between Malacath cult and shapeshifting, and because Reach folk historically have lycanthropes in their ranks, this could very possibly be where this comes from. They apparently transform into ogres and trolls rather than werewolves though, so this theory doesn't really work here. especially because it seems these transformations aren't the result of lycanthropy. Still, it's probably time to stop beating around the bush. You can't do a Malacath video without looking at the orcs in particular.
Here, take the helm of Orion Bearclaw, wear it proudly, and let it serve as a reminder of what really happened.
The Orsimer believe that many gods exist. That's probably not the craziest statement around. In the world of the Elder Scrolls, it would be weird if you didn't, when you can go around talking to a bunch of them quite casually. But the orcs only worship one, Malacath. Sure, he has two halves, as we've talked about before, but orcs can't agree on whether the Daedric half is separate or two halves of the same coin. They also know him as the Orc Father, the Great Chief, the First Orc, Lord of the Sworn Oath and the Bloody Curse, and Ashpit's Lord. All these names in different perspectives from the orcs likely come down to how many a clan is separate, rather than coming together to form one nation, living in their own strongholds with kind of their own way of doing things. Each stronghold might have its specific stories about Malacath, passed down from chief to son, with some apparently even continuing the worship of Trinimac specifically, but something that is common in these strongholds is the Code of Malacath, also known as the Code of Malok, depending on who you ask, I suppose. The code itself is a set of unwritten rules, which is annoying for me because I can't just slap them all on screen for you here, and these rules were apparently revealed to the orcs on the day of Trinimac's corruption into Malacath. It is known for covering topics like honour and vengeance, which implies that Malacath believes in honour, showing that there is probably some of Trinimac still there, but also covers how orcs should live their life in general, including the whole multiple wives thing and how orcs must die in battle before they are old and a burden. It also means that Malacath is not one for disorder or crime, since theft, murder and assault are banned by the code. The code specifically shows love for the process of forging, hence why there's always a forge wife in a stronghold, showing that Malacath respects some form of craft, and isn't just some vengeful monster looking to cause chaos. This doesn't mean he's particularly kind in any way. He doesn't believe in jails or imprisonment, hence why you can't find one in an orc stronghold. Instead, the Code of Malacath demands that those breaking said code pay a blood price, with the criminal being bled until the crime is considered adequately paid for. They are known to literally use a scale to measure out the blood needed to be spilt, so Malacath believes in measuring too, apparently. What are the chances he's into baking? Maybe the orcs eat a blood cake? Despite many a tale stating that Malacath gets punished and relegated to the ash pits, it still becomes a sort of Sovngarde-esque place for the orcs, somewhere the worthy seek to go when they kick the bucket in glorious combat. Visually, the two places are very different, but there are quite a few elements that make it similar to Sovngarde, since the orcish followers of Malacath are promised immortality and abundant food and drink in the centre of Malacath's stronghold in the Ash Pits, around a place called the Ashen Forge. Here, the orcs are in constant battle, all Valhalla style, and the idea is that Malacath's stronghold is the ideal orc stronghold, with walls and towers of iron that reach up into the smoky sky, with a massive longhouse that surrounds the Ashen Forge. This forge apparently burns hotter than the sun, although I'm not sure if this means the surface or the core, since they have vastly different temperatures. Actually, the Elder Scrolls' sun is just a hole in the sky that shows Aetherius. So, is this saying that Aetherius is just hot? Is the Ashen Forge just hotter than Aetherius? Is this the standard we're going for? Now the coals are white hot, kept burning by the orcs in the Ashen Forge, which I assume are made up of the Forge Wives, and it is said that the Forge is the very manifestation of the Code of Malacath itself, explaining why Orc Dad here loves the Forge so much. Arriving orcs are put through the coals of the forge to be purified, in a process called tempering, burning away their grudges, to pass them down to the next generation of living orcs. This doesn't mean they're all chill in the afterlife though, since this opens them up to make new grudges, allowing them to continue fighting. This all sounds well and good until a certain part of the ash pits that doesn't quite add up. So all orc chiefs who go to the ash pits are equal in death, all remaining as chiefs. Each of these chiefs gets 1,000 wives, then each of these wives gets 1,000 slaves, which doesn't add up. 100 chiefs in, you'd then need 100,000 wives and 100 million slaves. I mean, where do you even get that many from? Are they Daedra? This seems like propaganda to me. A bit of a white lie to get people excited for the ash pits, and the whole everyone is a chief thing doesn't really add up to me either, because at that point surely Malacath is the big boy chief in charge. I mean, they call him the Great Chief. Another strange thing is that Malacath, despite all of his love of forging and his longhouse being built around the forge, he didn't make his own Daedric artifact, nor did any of his orcs. So I guess it's time to talk about Volendrung.
You place that hammer on the shrine. You're the only one who's proven worthy in all of this.
I don't usually mention Daedric artifacts in these videos because their stories don't tend to be that remarkable, or particularly affect how a Daedric Prince is seen by the people. But this isn't the case with Volendrung. With what I've said about Malacath, you might think that Volendrung has something to do with the Orcs or maybe the Chimer and the Dunmer, depending on the timeline. But this is where the Dwemer enter the picture. Volendrung is a weapon made by Clan Rorken, most famous for their journey from the Velothi Mountains, arriving in Hammerfell. In fact, Hammerfell got its name because the king of the Rorken clan threw Volendrung and declared that his people would settle in the new land where his hammer fell. Not the most creative, but don't you worry, their lack of creativity does not end there. You see, the specific spot where the hammer landed became one of the largest dwarven cities in the world, called Volenfell, because Volendrung fell there. Yeah, at least it sounds cool, right? Now, Volendrung was a weapon representing Dwemer strength, while they were around anyway, but when they all vanished, it ended up representing Malacath's power. The problem is, we don't know how this happened. Some state that Malacath's Volendrung is a completely separate hammer, a kind of replica, which is more than likely within the Daedra Prince's powers to make due to his love of the forge. It is a confusing situation though, since Malacath is known to be an enemy of the Dwemer. In fact, a race of giant goblins drove the Rorken clan out of Hammerfell, led by Malok, the goblin name of Malacath. So people are puzzled as to why he would associate himself with one of the Dwemer's most iconic weapons. Some say it's a form of deception, with him using Volendrung against the people who made it out of immense spite. He is all about vengeance after all. Although my headcanon is that when the goblins drove the Rorken clan out, Malacath saw how cool the hammer was, and while it was made by the Dwemer, as a craftsman, he couldn't deny its quality, so he took it for himself. It can't be that good though, the Dragonborn can make a more deadly fork. So Malacath is one of those Daedric princes that very much operates like a traditional god. He is a patron deity, similar to Azura in a way, with her relationship with the Dunmer, and because he's so staunchly for his people, he has distinct allies in the orcs, goblins and ogres, and distinct enemies, which are almost everyone else. As a result, Malacath is often seen as an enemy and someone to be wary of, but I do want you guys to understand the difference between Malacath and the other violent Daedra, like Molag Bal and Mehrunes Dagon. Despite his violence, he cares for his people. He doesn't do everything for himself, and he made the code of Malacath because he believes that this is the way his people should live to better themselves, not to increase his personal power, although I'm sure he benefits from this too. Because of his backstory of either being wronged by Boethia or betrayed by the Daedra, Malacath is one driven by rage and thus fostered an us against the world mentality with his people. He's not neutral like Hircine, who only cares about the sport of the hunt. He cares about his code and his people, and this sense of honour prevents him from being anywhere near the level of depravity of a Molag Bal. Although do not take this as him being some goody two-shoes either. He's violent and wrathful. A story that exemplifies all of this is one he shares with Sheogorath. I won't go into the full details here, because a Sheogorath video will cover that in the future at some point, but the Lord of Madness had essentially managed to trick Malacath into slaying a son he didn't know he had by using his vengeful nature against him, and while Malacath had never met this man before, he still greatly mourned his now slain son. Malacath is someone who cares, someone who loves, yet that love is expressed with rage, battle and conquest. It's why the Orcs are the way they are, battle-hardened but not unreasonable, not without their honour or their code of conduct. They're not the mythic Dawn or the Volkihar vampires who want to turn off the sun, the morons. They follow a code meant to bring honour, strength and order, mainly through violence born of vengeance and rage, and they have no problem of letting go when it's their time. But when I do look at Malacath's backstory, I'm beginning to think he could have done with some therapy. I think he would have had the potential to be a relatively chill dude. Oh well. Thanks for watching episode 3, count it 3, of the Daedric Prince series. The question then comes to who you guys want to see next. I do intend to do all the Daedric Princes, slowly but surely. In the meantime, there are the 2 other episodes to watch, Hircine, which I've mentioned a few times before, and Hermaeus Mora, so if you haven't watched them, please do. I'm leaning towards Sheogorath next, because I mentioned a bit of his story here, but there were also shouts for Nocturnal and Molag Bal in the last episode, so give your shouts in the comments below, and also let me know what you think of Malacath. Are you pro-Orc, or think he needs to bring it down a notch? It is a lot of blood. But while you wait, please do the whole YouTube ritual of liking, commenting and subscribing, and hopefully I'll see you in another video.